Hello, everyone. My name is Caroline Boyke. I'm a piano teacher in the Charlotte area. A little bit about this beginner series. You don't need any experience to be part of this series. I'm going to be starting at the very beginning of learning piano. If you've played before, but it's been a while, it might be a helpful review of just some technique and things like that. And throughout the lessons, I also plan to give tips to parents and grandparents. If you have a child that you've been thinking about getting involved in piano lessons, you want to know a little bit more about what that's like, maybe even give them a little head start at home. I'll be giving you some tips for things that you can do with your child, music activities and things as we go along. So the material that I'll be teaching I'll give you tips for how to share that with a child. All right, so I just want to mention, if you are tuning in at this time, there's live chat available. You're more than welcome to ask questions, make comments. I'd love for this to be an interactive session, so feel free to do that. If you think of a question after the fact, my email address is on my website, so you're welcome to contact me that way with your question as well. So the first thing we're going to talk about today, just really basic, is how to sit at the piano. Now, this is really important because you really want to make sure that you're in the healthiest, most comfortable most comfortable position for playing. This will be important, especially if piano is something that you stick with over a long period of time. You want to have healthy techniques so that you don't run into problems with tension and things like that. So you want to start building those habits of, every time you sit down to practice, thinking through those things right off the bat. So as far as the height, there are some variations in terms of what different people believe is the best height to play at. But what I usually tell my students is that you should have your forearm and your hand and everything be about level with the keys. So if you notice your wrist tends to be up higher or down lower, I think being down lower is actually more common from what I've seen. People dip their wrist down. You want to just bring that back up so that they have like a straight line here, basically. They do sell adjustable piano benches, which are really nice. It's actually what I have here. There's like these knobs on the side so you can take it and get it just right. But if you don't have one of those, pianos don't typically come with those. So if you don't have one and you don't want to buy one right now, that's totally fine. You can just, maybe find a different chair or something. Or if it's a little kid that needs to be up a lot higher, maybe fold some thick blankets or something to put on the seat. So just to get it just right so that your arm is about level. Okay. Now, as far as the distance, you can, I'm about the right distance right now. So a trick that I learned from the Faber Piano Adventures series, it's a piano curriculum, is that you can use your fist, and if you reach out and touch the fall board here, if your back is about straight, that's good. If you find yourself leaning one way or the other, that means you need to change the distance a little bit. So different pianists might have their own, like, just a little nuance in how they like to sit, but that's a good, like, default is, your back is straight and your arm is about level when you play. Okay? And I've done this. Sometimes people start out in the right wrist position, but then as they play, their wrist kind of goes down a lot. So just something to watch out for. You should feel like your wrist is flexible. You should never feel like I'm locked in this exact position. We do kind of make circles and do things as we play. That's okay. The problem comes when this is your default, when you're keep going to this position unnecessarily and it becomes a habit. You want this to be generally the position of your wrist, your default. Okay. So one other thing for little kids, sometimes their feet don't quite touch the floor yet, so you might want to put a box or a stack of books or something under their feet so that they're not, if their feet are dangling, they might start kind of leaning forward, and it's just not as comfortable for them too. So if you can put something under their feet, that helps. All right, so moving on from seating position, in piano, we name our fingers using numbers. So it's just really easy. Just thumb is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you start at your thumb, count out to your pinky. Same thing over here. Thumb is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So start counting the middle and count out. Sometimes little kids will get a little mixed up about this simply because, on your left hand, you're starting on this side and counting this way. On your other hand, you're starting here and counting this way. And they get mixed up about which way is which. So here's the little game you can play with them. is you have them put one of their hands on the keys, and you just keep saying different numbers. So 3, 4, 1, 5, and just kind of keep doing that till they get really comfortable with which is which. Then you can switch hands and do the exact same thing. Okay? So finger numbers are important because a lot of times in music you'll see these little finger numbers written in that tell you what note to play that, what finger to play that note with. It's a suggestion, and it makes it easier than figuring it out all from scratch. There may also be times where you want to figure out your own fingering, or you want to change the fingering that's written into something that's more comfortable for you. You want to know those finger numbers so that you can be writing those in as you go so that you remember them. Okay, so far we've talked about seating position, finger numbers. Now we're going to start talking about the keyboard. So we use numbers to name our fingers, but we use letters to name notes in music. You may already know that. And it's just like our normal alphabet, except it stops at G. So the music alphabet goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it just starts over. So I'm on a full 88 key keyboard here. If you have something smaller than that, it might be different. But on the regular size keyboard, standard size, you start with A all the way at the bottom. So we're looking just at the white keys right now. I'll talk about the black keys in a minute. This is A all the way at the bottom, the first white key, and it goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then back to A again, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It just keeps going. For some reason, it cuts off in the middle of the alphabet on C up here, but that's how it works. Okay, so the black keys do not use separate letter names. They use the letter name of either of the white keys next to them, and then you add on a word like sharp, flat, double sharp, double flat. So it's the names for the black keys are a little more complicated to explain. We're not going to be getting into that today. We're going to start with playing on the white keys instead. Okay. So take a minute if you have a piano there. Just kind of maybe start at the bottom. Just go A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Play a few of those patterns going up. Be comfortable with that. Okay. After you are finished doing that, I have some melodies here that I posted on my website that you're welcome to print off for your personal use or view online. So you may already have this, but if you have not looked this up yet, I would encourage you to go to my website, the link for this video. And so you can go to my website and click on the page that describes, there's a link right at the top of my page talking about my lesson series. If you click on the button for that, you'll go to the web page for the lesson series, and that page has a button you can click to go to the materials page for the beginner series. Okay, so just follow the links for that, and you will see the PDF file of these melodies. So when you get that up, you will see that the melodies are written with just the letter names. And before we start playing these, I want to give you a little hint to figure out the first key. So the first note is C, and so melody number 1, the first letter name is C. So here's how you find C. You can use any C on the piano for this. It doesn't matter. I'm going to use the one right in front of me. So what you do is you look for the 2 black keys. So if you notice, the black keys are generally either in pairs of 2 or groups of 3. So I'm looking for one of the pairs of 2 black keys. Okay, here's a pair of black keys right here. So there's 3 white keys kind of alternating with those, kind of like underneath the black keys. There's 3 white keys. The first of those is a C. So anytime you see a pair of 2 black keys, if you look for the white keys, the 3 white keys underneath those, the first one is a C. Okay? Okay, lots of C's on the piano. Okay, so I'm going to use this C, like I said, since it's right in front of me. So that is your starting note. So you're going to start with C. Okay, so now you're just going to, read the letter names and play along. So it says C, D, so that would be the next one, because remember it goes left to right, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and so on. And then E, F, G. Okay, now I'm up to my pinky. Now it says E. So I'm going back to E. So I'm going to skip over F and go to E. That's finger 3. And then it says C. So that's my thumb again. Okay, so here's it together without me talking over it. Okay, I'll give you a minute to try that again. So it starts on C, and you just follow those letter names back and forth. C, D, E, F, G, E, C. Okay, so before we move on to melody 2, I just wanted to clarify one thing, in case you're not already aware of this. When we talk about going up the piano, we're talking about going to the right, because these are the high notes. In case you're not already aware of this, when we talk about going up the piano, we're talking about going to the right, because these are the high notes. So you're going up to the high notes. If you're going down the piano, you're going this direction to the low notes. Okay, so I know it's right and left rather than up and down, like literally. So that, but because you're going the high notes, we say going up. Because we're going the low notes, we say we're going down the piano. So I just wanted to clarify that as we play these melodies. If I talk about like going up, playing up the piano, it's going this way, and then we go down to E, down to C in that melody number 1. Okay? All right, so let's look at this second melody now. And this is the same idea. It's just, different letter names, but it starts on C. And then it goes to G, which if you remember from the last one is your pinky. And goes to E, which would be finger 3. Then it goes to C, which is your thumb again. Then F, which is finger 4. D, which is finger 2. And finally we go back to C. Okay, so it can take a little while to get comfortable with jumping back and forth because you're like moving around in the alphabet and not going in order. So it can take a little bit of time. I am recording this lesson. So as you practice these things this week before the next lesson, you might want to go back to it and just kind of review the melodies with me on the video as you practice them, if that's helpful to you. But we're going to go ahead and move on to melody 3 now. So this one's a little bit longer. And if you look closely at it, you'll see that there's a lot of repeated notes. So it goes C, C, D, D, E, E, and so on. Okay? So let's go ahead and play this one together. So ready, set, go. C, C, D, D, E, E, and then we jump up to G, which is your pinky. G, G, jump back down to E, finger 3 again. E, E, jump down to C, which is your thumb. C, C, and then D, D, C, C. Okay? I'm going to give you a minute to go ahead and practice that one more time before we move on. All right. So again, these are things you can kind of practice during the week to continue getting comfortable with your notes on the piano before the next lesson. And if you'll excuse me for one moment, just realized that my computer's a little bit low on charge, so I want to fix that real quick. See. Okay, I apologize for the interruption. Okay. So as I was saying, you can keep practicing these at home. And if you want to combine this with practice, getting comfortable with your finger numbers, an activity I would suggest would be going through this and penciling in the finger number for each note. So like we talked about, melody 1, actually all of these start on C. So you would put finger 1 and then just, add all of them in. So I'm going to give you the fingering for the first one, and then you can fill in the rest later. So the first melody is 1 on C, 2 on D, 3 on E, 4 on F, 5 on G, so just in order. And then you go back to 3 on E and 1 on C. Okay? Okay, and then if you get tired of practicing these, you're like, I've got that down pat, I want something new to work on, you can try writing your own melody for more practice with your notes. So just write a bunch of letters in a row like I did, and then try playing it and see what happens. One tip for that, you want to make sure that I would encourage you to use the same hand position we did, where your thumb is on C, and as you do that, and you write your melody, make sure that you end up on C. Make sure the last note in the melody is C, because that's going to make it the ending sound really good. So if I don't do that, so I'm making up a melody and I end on something other than C, a lot of times it does not sound finished. And there's reasons for that you learn as you study music theory and things like that. But if we don't end on C when we're using a melody in this hand position, it often doesn't sound like the end of a piece. But if I go back to C, now it sounds like the end. Okay, so that's just a little composing tip for you as you write your melody. Write whatever ones you want, but make sure it ends on C. And that'll give it a strong finish on that last note. Okay? So one more thing that I want to mention to you while we're in the piano playing segment of this lesson, and then we'll go on to tips for buying a piano or a keyboard, as promised in my promo video for this series. But before we do that, I really want to emphasize the importance of developing the habit of looking at your music primarily as you play. It's very natural to want to watch your hands. I find a lot of people do that when they're starting out. I likely did it as well. It's completely understandable because you want to see what you're playing. But what happens is that you end up, glancing back and forth between your music and your hands so much that there ends up being little pauses in your playing while you're trying to find your spot again. And also another thing that happens is sometimes you're trying to play it by memory before you're ready to do that because you're looking at your hands, you're trying to remember it. And memorizing music is a great thing to practice doing, but sometimes we try to do that too early before we really know it, and then we get mixed up about the notes and maybe end up playing the wrong ones or something. So it's good to really early on, like even this week, your first week of playing, just be developing that habit of looking at your music instead of your hands. Now, of course, sometimes we do glance down, but you want your default to be looking at the music. So as you practice these melodies this week, see if you can play them, like once you find your hand position, see if you can play them just looking at your music and not looking down. Another activity that you can do to practice this is just close your eyes or look straight ahead and just, have your hand in position. Make sure you do practice this with each hand so you're not just practicing playing piano with only one hand, but switch back and forth. So you have your hand in place, and you're just thinking of different finger numbers. So 3, 5, 2, 4, 1. And just keep doing that. Kind of play a game with yourself and just feel the key, feel your finger go down, but don't look at it. And that will also help you to develop that habit. Okay, so I just think that's a great thing to start working on right away. Okay, again, if you have any questions about the stuff we've been going over, you're welcome to ask me in the live chat, or if you want to email me your question later on, that's also fine. But we're going to move now into talking a little bit about some tips for buying a piano or a keyboard, or how to get one of those, because I know it can feel like there's a lot of options. Like, what do you look for? The first thing I would say is that it's definitely preferable to get an acoustical piano as opposed to a digital keyboard. There are a couple of pretty significant differences between a piano versus a digital keyboard. One is that they tend to feel pretty different. On a digital keyboard, the keys are typically easier to press down than on a piano. And so if you're practicing on a digital keyboard, you're really getting used to the feel of that. And then when you switch, maybe you go somewhere and play a piano, it might throw you off. So I think it's best to go right to the piano and be doing your practicing on an acoustical piano if you can. Another difference is that on a digital keyboard, you're hearing recorded sounds of all of these different notes. Whereas on the piano, on a digital keyboard, that's how it works. But on a piano, the sound is actually being created inside the piano by hammers hitting strings as you play. So the sound is being created on the spot, and you can put more nuance into the way you play. Instead of just having this same recorded sound for every note. So those are a couple of reasons why acoustical pianos are a better option. But having said that, I know there's a lot of different circumstances and reasons why you might want to go with a digital piano for a while before you look into investing in an acoustical piano. Some of the keyboards take up a little less space, for example, or maybe you already have one and you want to try out piano for a while before you buy a keyboard. Buy a piano. Keyboards are also nice because they're transportable. So if you're interested in playing at some point playing outdoor events or things like that, they're great for that. So there's definitely some times when people want to stick with a keyboard for a while, and I think that can be a very perfectly fine temporary solution. But I would encourage you, when you have the opportunity, to go ahead and get the acoustical piano. If you decide to go the route of a digital keyboard, I would encourage you to make sure it has weighted keys. That's a big deal when you're getting a keyboard. You want to have what's called weighted keys, because that is going to basically make the keys a little bit harder to press down, and it's going to feel more like a piano. So that's the biggest thing I would look for when you're getting a keyboard. If it has a damper pedal, that's also really good. So you have the option. You probably don't need that right away when you start playing, but you're going to want it later. So if you're planning to be on a keyboard for a little while, you want to make sure it has the damper pedal, or at least the capability to plug one in later, to buy one later on. Okay, so weighted keys, damper pedal, and the third thing, if you can, is to get one that has a full keyboard, which is 88 keys. Okay. So those are some tips that I've heard for getting a good quality keyboard. Do keep in mind, whether you're looking for a piano or a keyboard, there are renting options available, so you can look into some piano stores. That's a good way to just, maybe you want to try piano for 6 months and you don't want to buy something yet. That can be, I think, a good option. I would caution you about buying one online from an individual, maybe who's just getting rid of one from their house. While I'm sure there's some good ones out there, it can be a little bit of a risk, just because you don't know what kind of shape it's in. There's a lot of, pieces inside the piano and things that need to be in good shape. And if you're just buying one, maybe the person doesn't really know what kind of shape it's in. Maybe it's been setting in their house for a long time and hasn't really been tuned or maintained. It could end up needing some major repairs that end up not being worth, all the trouble and the cost of moving it, having it moved and everything, and then getting it tuned. And, maybe there's some repairs that are hard to fix. And so it can be a little bit more of a risk getting it that way. If you do find one online that's being, given away, or someone calls you and they're giving one away, and you want to look into that, see if they'll let you have a good quality piano tuner come look at it first, just to kind of see, is this worth having it moved and everything? Because you do want to have it professionally moved. I think that's another thing that can be a risk, is if you're moving it yourself and you don't really have the equipment to do that, that can be a risk. So that would just be my recommendation to you to, if you're getting it, like someone's just getting rid of a piano, try to have it looked at first. And then if you decide to get it, get a piano, whether it's from like a piano store or an individual like that, have some piano movers come and get it for you, just to make sure you keep it in good shape as it's being moved. Okay, so I hope that those tips were helpful to you. If you have questions about that, you can ask me as well. But I hope that gives you just a few factors to think through as